This is an interesting message to progressives, Democrats, people on the political left in America. I have many friends who are progressives, and because I have so many interest areas in common with them, such as opposing GMOs and opposing, toxic glyphosate herbicide, things like that. And sometimes they will ask me a question about what they see as my conservative beliefs or libertarian positions or liberty-oriented positions, because I'm very publicly pro-Second Amendment. I own firearms. I've been trained in firearms, tactical handgun combat, long-range target shooting, shotgun combat, hand-to-hand combat, knife combat. I've been trained in many, many areas of combat. And when it comes to economics, I'm very much an Austrian economics libertarian advocate of honest money, gold-backed money, conservative economics, and so on. So my progressive friends are always asking me, or not always, but from time to time, asking me, say, hey, Mike, why don't you come over to our side? Why don't you just give up the Second Amendment, give up the conservative economics, the free market? Just give that up. They say, come on over to our side. The water is better over here. We've got the whole media supporting us. We've got the entire government supports us. We're all about, compassion, and you're a compassionate guy. Why don't you come over to our side? You can be compassionate, and you can be green, and you can be a Democrat. We'd welcome you over on the Democrat side. And I say, you know what? You're forgetting the benefit of me being part of the liberty community, being pro-Second Amendment, very, very strong pro-Second Amendment, not giving up my guns, not a chance. I'm a Texan. I live out in the country. I need firearms as tools. I live on a ranch. I need firearms for self-defense and self-protection. And so I'm not giving up my guns. So I'm not changing. But here's the benefit that a lot of progressives don't think of. I have been, over the last several years, extremely influential in the liberty movement of carrying a message that opposes GMOs, opposes glyphosate, opposes toxic pesticides, opposes toxic fluoride in the water, and I have brought a message of science to the liberty movement. I mean, I'm the only guy in the liberty movement that owns my own scientific analysis laboratory where I test fluoride in water. I test for lead in city water supplies. And because of that, many, many people in the liberty movement have been influenced by my work in that area. So I've been able to really help. I mean, if you think about it, the liberty movement is also entirely anti-GMO. Now, there are a few kind of fringe libertarians who are pro-Monsanto and pro-chemical, but, they're insane. And it's not even most libertarians, just a small faction of them. Most libertarians are, in fact, anti-GMO, or at least pro-labeling, so that we, the people, have a choice of what to buy and what to consume. And many, many people in the liberty movement have been influenced by my words and my articles. And years ago, when I used to substitute host the Alex Jones show, I was very influential with Alex himself. And Alex Jones, I believe, is strongly anti-GMO, in part because of my work there. Maybe he would have been on his own anyway, but certainly I helped, I think, shape his knowledge of things like Fukushima fallout, how iodine works in the body, and why GMOs are toxic and why glyphosate is toxic, and so on. So those of you who are in the progressive community, you might hate Alex Jones. You might think Alex is like the craziest, wild, maniac, whatever you think. He's been characterized in many, many different ways. But you got to say, at the end of the day, guess what? He's also totally opposed to Monsanto. So he carries that anti-GMO message to his listeners and readers as well. And I've been part of that education effort through that channel, over the years. So I think it's important to think about the benefits. I'm an environmentalist. I want clean water. I want a clean environment. I want to protect Mother Nature. It's very, very high on my list. And yet, I'm very, very skeptical about the explanation of man-made global warming. And I know this can often be a litmus test. Like if you're on the left, you're supposed to instantly believe in global warming. And if you're on the right, you're supposed to not believe in global warming. Well, what I found is that even the people on the left who say they believe in global warming, they have no scientific basis for doing so. They aren't scientists. They've never read scientific studies. They don't know how to read science studies. They don't know how carbon dioxide even works. They couldn't even draw the carbon dioxide molecule on a piece of paper, which is hilarious. And yet they're convinced that global warming is man-made. It turns out that all of you progressives who are saying this are just parroting what you've been told. You don't know that firsthand. And the same thing is true on the political right. People who are against global warming, many of them, they've never read any science on carbon dioxide, or they don't have any understanding of the fundamentals of organic chemistry or atmospheric science or anything. So they're just sort of repeating what they're told too. In fact, most people are just repeating whatever they've been told. And they just line up on the left or the right like it's a football team, They're picking sides on the field. And if you're a progressive, you're supposed to align on the left with all these issues. You're supposed to be, pro-gay, pro-transgender, global warming is man-made. You're supposed to line up on all these issues. And to me, that's a red flag, no matter where you fall on these issues. If you just believe whatever people tell you and you don't do your own research, then, I don't really respect that. You're not really qualified to vote, for that matter, to speak about it. You're not qualified. You got to have some understanding, do some independent research. And that's why I, as someone who is, on the left on some issues like regulating pollutants from corporate manufacturing, but I'm also on the right on other issues like Second Amendment, that is your surest sign that my opinions are authentic, because I refuse to line up on the left or the right. I refuse to just sign up and say, I'm going to believe all your things on the left, boom, 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 1, 2, 3, check, check, check. I refuse that. I'm not going to just fall in line and parrot everything that all of your friends are parroting just because you're all part of the progressive movement. And I'm also not going to parrot everything on the conservative side. I'm not going to just go to a Bush rally, and just sign up and just repeat everything that George W. Bush believes. or some other Republican for that matter. I'm not an obedient slave of other people's philosophies. I like to look at each issue independently and make an informed decision on each of those issues. And as an example, I'll tell you, I'm very much in favor of government regulation of pollution and emissions from manufacturing plants. So, because I realize as a scientist that if we did not have limits, all the corporations in the country would just dump every pollutant possible right down the river, and we'd end up like China. I mean, there's no other way to stop these companies from doing that other than by force, by coercion. That's what government is. It is coercion. It's sticking a gun in your face and making you do something. Now, I happen to realize that government should not be sticking their guns in the faces of individuals. That's where they've gone wrong. They've taken away too many individual rights, but they've granted immunity to the corporations. They have it all backwards. The government should be putting the guns in the faces of the corporate CEOs, gunpoint enforcement of the corporations, and leave the people alone, leave the individuals alone. You see, that's where they've got it backwards. So I believe that government coercion has a use against criminal corporations, but that government coercion should not be used against individuals except in the most extreme cases like mass murderers or someone who's causing extreme harm, violence, murder, rape, that kind of thing. So that makes me a conservative in some areas, which means government should get out of the business of regulating our firearms, for example. The Second Amendment says we have the right to keep and bear arms. The government does not have the ability, the constitutional power, to limit that right in any way. We shouldn't even have to get government permission to purchase our rifles. Especially not in Texas, where everybody's got a rifle, it seems like, especially people who live out in the country. Why do we have to report to Washington to buy a tool that we use on a farm? So, also economically speaking, I believe in free markets. I believe in low taxation. I believe in setting small businesses free to create jobs and create prosperity. And I think that the entire tax system is a total scam. And let me explain this. The government doesn't need to tax any of us. The government spends so much money every year that what they're spending has no correlation whatsoever to the money that they raise from taxes. They have nothing to do with each other. They're spending more than they have already, and they're just creating the money that they need to spend. They're just literally inventing it in the central bank as a debt, pushing it through the Treasury, issuing it to the government through Treasury debt. And this process does not require you to pay taxes. The entire system of taxing you and me and even small businesses is a complete hoax. There's no financial reason. There's no mathematical reason for any of us to pay any taxes to the federal government. It can create all the money that it wants to spend because it's already creating money and handing it out to the banks anyway. So I believe not only in low taxes, I believe in no taxes because the government doesn't need our money to fund itself. So that puts me in a very conservative economic circle, or more of a libertarian economic circle. And yet I've arrived at that conclusion by thinking critically about it and understanding the math and understanding the economics and looking at the federal debt and compounding interest on the debt and the amount of revenue that's raised by taxation and so on and so forth. So I've arrived at that logically. Logically, there is no need to have a federal income tax in America. The only reason it exists is to suppress you, the people. And so when I hear progressives saying, oh, we need higher taxes, what for? Why do you need higher taxes? The government can hand out all the money at once anyway. It doesn't even need to raise taxes. We could eliminate taxes and still hand out money to everybody because it's all going to implode at some point anyway. The whole fiat currency system is going to crash and burn because we're already $19 trillion in debt. There's no end in sight, and the government's going to keep handing out money to everybody. This is all going to crash and burn. So why bother taxing the people during this collapse? Might as well just go tax-free. But again, progressives don't understand that. Progressives are they're really horrible at understanding economics and math, while conservatives are really horrible at understanding the chemistry of pesticides and herbicides and how ecosystems work and so on. So, in other words, conservatives are really bad at science, and liberals are really bad at math and economics. It's true. It's true. You think about it. All the pro-GMO people are on the right. They're all conservatives. And then all the economic morons are on the left, the socialists and the high tax people. So, that's why I don't fit into either group, because I think critically, as I think you do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a fan of my work. You're an independent thinker as well. And I know that because every time someone comes up to me and says, oh, you're the health ranger, you're Mike, it's really great to meet you, I'm a fan of your work, they always say, they throw this in there, but I don't agree with everything you say. And I always say to them, that's awesome. That's fantastic. I hope you don't, because if you did agree with everything I said, you'd be stalking me. You'd be like a groupie, and I'm going to leave the area right now because I don't want stalkers. I want to associate with other intelligent people who arrive at their own conclusions independently. And who knows, maybe I'm wrong on some issues and you're right. And maybe I will change my view one day when I'm in possession of better information or a different perspective. I don't claim to be 100% right about everything. No one can be. No one has the power of God to see and understand everything, not in a human lifetime. So I want to be around people who have reached their own independent opinions about things and have those opinions substantiated and validated by observation and cognition, thinking critically about things and understanding history, understanding mathematics, economics, understanding chemistry and science, and also having an understanding of the divine, consciousness, the spirit, religion, the existence of God or powers that are greater than us. So when I meet someone like that, that's amazing. When I meet someone who I could talk to about everything from history, economics, science, and divinity, and philosophy, then that's like, wow, because it's so rare. It's really rare. But those are the kind of people that I actually enjoy being around. So I can hang out with progressives. I can hang out with conservatives. I can hang out at the gun range with gun guys. They're the nicest guys in the world, by the way. I don't know why, gay people are afraid of gun guys. But again, maybe I haven't had the experience of being like a gay person in a gun culture. So maybe there's no way I would know what that's like, But my experience with gun guys is that they're really great guys. Very, very honest, hardworking, ethical, high moral value, intelligent, capable. And I get along great with other gun owners. They're really wonderful people, at least the ones that I've interacted with. So, and then I can hang out with people on the left, and we can talk about environmental contamination, pollutants with pesticides and herbicides, and how the government is failing us all when it comes to lead in the water or the neonic pesticides that are killing the honeybees, for example, or the glyphosate or the GMOs. Or the lack of government regulation of the banking industry, that there's another issue where I agree with people on the left. And yet the people on the right are all just like pro-corrupt banks, mafia, criminal banksters, Goldman Sachs, Hillary Clinton, Ted Cruz, it's all just the same crimes over and over again. It's just sick. So I hope that you evolve your thoughts, evolve your understanding. I hope that you become your own person. Do not be suckered into somebody else's paradigm. Do not allow yourself to be trapped in the thinking of the progressive left or the conservative right or anything else in between. Certainly don't go into socialism and communism and all that. Fascism. Marxism. Please don't go there. All those systems don't work. They lead to massive human suffering and usually genocide, mass murder by governments. So don't even try that. Believe me, free markets work when they're actually allowed to be free. But there is a role for regulation, especially when it comes to pollutants and consumer safety and certain standards for products, things like that. So, food labeling. If you didn't have a government that required food companies to label their foods, they wouldn't label them. They would just say, screw you. We'll tell you what's in it when we want to. Because that's the way they operate. So you gotta have some government enforcement essentially at gunpoint to the corporations, but lay off the individuals. So I hope I've been clear about that. If you're wondering what the background noise is, by the way, I apologize. I'm printing some 3D printer prototypes right now for my new food rising grow system that you can see at foodrising.org. Actually, these aren't prototypes. These are production valve. What do we call them? Valve adapters. It's a small threaded piece that connects the automatic watering valve to the gravity-fed water supply, which is why our food rising grow systems are 100% like self-watering with no electricity, no pumps, none of that stuff. So it's really cool. And by the way, I find that people on the left and people on the right love to grow their own food. So every time I talk about food, like it crosses all the boundaries of politics and party lines and all that, which is great. Everybody realizes you're going to be healthier and wealthier if you grow your own food because you're not spending a fortune on horrible grocery store food and you're not eating like low quality food. You're actually growing your own food. It's highly nutritious. So, go to foodrising.org if you want to see the system. This is the Food Rising mini farm grow box version 2. And I've vastly simplified the system. And it only has one 3D printed part now. And I actually have the 3D printer in my office. Because I used to run a bank of printers when I had more parts that were more complicated in the first food rising system. Now I can actually just run 2 printers and I can keep up with the volume because each part only takes 10 minutes to print. Right now I'm printing like 10 parts, so it's like 100 minutes. So anyway, that's what that noise is. If you hear that, I just wanted to explain that. I apologize in advance, but I wanted to get this message out. So anyway, thank you for listening. My name is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger. You can catch my podcast at healthrangerreport.com. You can catch my science and health and natural living news at naturalnews.com. And if you ever want to hear my opinions on politics and economics and elections and so on, you can get that at newstarget.com. Although I really haven't done much in that realm lately. I've been focusing on my laboratory analysis of foods and so on. So most of my work is at naturalnews.com for the moment, although that could shift at some future date. In any case, thank you for being you. Thank you for being an independent person who thinks for yourself and who isn't suckered into everybody else's cults and belief systems that are mostly false. You know, I mean, like, again, the political parties in America, the left and the right, both of them are built on massive false information. They are not consistent. They are not true. They're all filled with falsehoods. The real truth is it's pieces and parts of those systems combined with other systems like libertarian economics and so on and so forth. So if you are your own person, if you're really free, you should never blindly, obediently follow any political party, period. All right, thanks for listening. Take care.